3, 2, 1. Hi, hello. It's Walking Wednesday, but I don't think I shall be walking this Wednesday because I'm not feeling very well. What I hoped was a temporary problem is probably not, and it's probably the cancer in my hip that's causing me the pain. So unfortunately, Walking Wednesday will have to be cancelled now for the foreseeable future. Let me just move this camera out of the way a bit. For the next few weeks at least, probably it's not going to get any better. I'll be honest about it. Cancer's not going to get any better. So I'm going to leave it at that. And my walking, talking days are pretty much over. So now it's, I might do a sit-in Saturday or something like that. I know that I want to put out as much content as I can now, which includes just these videos plus maybe some podcasts, etc. But I'm a bit shy. I don't think I've got any reason to be shy. So it's just pride in disguise, and I don't want to look stupid. I don't want anyone to say, "What's he doing that for? Stupid." So yeah, I'll tell you what I'm doing it for. The outside chance that other people might find them interesting, and some of them might actually direct message me and ask for some advice about the drinking or about the cancer. And I'll just hold my hands up now. I am an expert at stopping drinking. I'm 33 years sober. I was diagnosed a long time ago when I was 25, 26 as a chronic alcoholic, and the assumption was that I would probably die before I'd sort of in my early 40s, if not before, and I would my alcoholism. In the UK, they describe alcoholism as a chronic relapsing condition, and they don't identify it as a disease or an illness in the same way that the Americans do and the World Health Organization do. They describe it in a similar way that we describe schizophrenia and bipolar, manic depression. They consider it an organic, physical illness, a chronic brain disorder. Anna Kempke, in a sort of newest book, the Dopamine Nation, describes it as a chronic brain disorder in the same way as a chronic liver disorder. It might be cirrhosis or a chronic sort of pancreas disorder would be diabetes or something. They consider the brain of an alcoholic organically, physiologically different to those of normal social drinkers, and therefore it's defective. in certain areas. So maybe there's a deficit of dopamine initially, and when an alcoholic has a drink, it releases far too much dopamine, and that creates a need. So it wants more. The more it gets, the more it wants, and when it gets flooded with dopamine. Normal people get a little, they may get a little taste of what an alcoholic has, but it has a real opiate type effect on an alcoholic. They don't really care about much once they've had just a couple of drinks. It talks about it in the big book, the ease and comfort that an alcoholic will have from just one or two. Even the thought of having a drink, planning a drink, having the drink somewhere where they know that they're going to get it, that provides them with some ease and comfort. So they're like Pavlov's dog. Their brain will react to even the thought of a drink. And nowadays we have PET scans and stuff like that. So if they were to inject you with a radioactive isotope, you would see the amygdala, the sort of pleasure centers of the brain light up when even we were talking about alcohol, and an alcoholic was talking about alcohol. And that probably, I don't know, it probably never goes away. So it's part of step one in accepting that we are, the alcoholic is different from our fellows, social drinkers, other normal folk. It says in the book, the idea that we are normal or presently maybe has to be smashed. It is the great delusion of every abnormal drinker that one day they can drink like other people. And in the same way that a defective pancreas will provide a person with deficits of insulin, or I don't know really how that works, but the brain is the main organ that the Americans are talking about. And yeah, we don't class it in the same way. The 1983 Mental Health Act classifies severe and enduring mental health problems. They're organic. They're like manic depression, bipolar, or schizophrenia. And there's no amount of talking and therapy that you could do with a schizophrenic person who, if they were on an episode, if they were florid, that it's a chemical imbalance, and they use substances like lithium to try to balance the brain chemistry and to some chemicals, some pharmacological remedies that are effective in those organic illnesses, but most of them are basically designed to contain and control. So they just numb the centers, and they're not able to function much on any level. So America believes that it's a chronic brain disease. The UK believe it is a chronic relapsing condition. They won't call it a disease. But I choose to believe the World Health Organization, who have defined it as a disease. So once upon a time, I believed that having the disease, or saying you had the disease, was a bit of a cop-out. That if you if you said you had a disease, you were basically resigning yourself to the fact that you were going to drink every day, probably, or you were going to drink heavily until the day that you died. And your life, your mortality would be vastly reduced as a result of your drinking. I believed there was no solution, so I was resigned to the fact that I was going to die young and there was no solution for my problem. I was wrong. There is a solution, and that solution is the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. So let's start again. 3, 2, 1. Right, I think it's not only me who thinks describing alcoholism as a disease is a bit of a cop-out. Most people, I think, when you describe alcoholism as a disease, they tend to sneer a little bit, and you know, my understanding of the disease is initially I quite often share at the minute, I've got 2 chronic diseases that I suffer from. I have alcoholism, and I have stage 4 cancer in colorectal. It started off, and now it's stated into my hip cavity and my spine. That's why I can't walk anymore. So yeah, that's you know. And if you ask me, like, how do what's the symptoms like of both illnesses? One of them, I get pissed and embarrass myself, and don't know what I'm doing. The other one, I spew, or not spew. I bleed from the arse, and I have a sort of numbing, gnawing, constant pain in and around my hip and my legs and my back, and that's intermittently replaced by a blinding, excruciating, shooting pain, which, as I described last week, if you ask, would I like my legs or left leg, because it's in my left hip cavity and pelvic cavity. If you ask, do you want to take my leg off and my bollocks, I would say yes, please, take them off as soon as possible, because the pain is something I can't even describe it. I don't know if women sort of, if childbirth is like that, but there's something nice at the end of childbirth. But I can have 2 days of this, which is awful. So yeah, top trumps on illnesses or on diseases. I reckon me cancer trumps my alcoholism, really, and most people's alcoholism. It is mentally excruciating, and alkies don't. They say it's a mental, physical, and spiritual illness or disorder. You know, I prefer to think of it as a mental, physical and emotional disease, because we are very sort of immature. One of the findings that the guy who first described dipsomania, or the chronic alcoholic, as suffering from an illness, an organic disease, it was a guy called Jelinek, and he, I think he was working off the alcoholic's own statements. He'd worked with hundreds and thousands of alcoholics over the years, and what he found were they were very childish and emotionally immature, and they were paper thin. That emotionally they were quite. They appeared to be hypersensitive to emotional stimulus, and he set out trying to prove that these people were physiologically different from normal folk. So these chronic alcoholics were physiologically, there was a physical difference, and he thought that was manifested in their inability to manage emotions. And so he tested them. He tested quite a large cohort of alcoholics and a large cohort of students, mostly who didn't drink. So he tested the dilation of pupils, heart rate, levels of sweat on the palms, lots of different like monitoring of reactions to different stimulus, and he showed them different pictures, images, and things that would stimulate feelings of happiness, sadness, fear, and anger. So he was looking for the four big sort of emotions, and he found it, but he was a little bit dumbfounded, because these people who claim to be hypersensitive to emotional stimulus reacted exactly the same as normal folk. So they reacted equally to stimuluses such as fear and love. So he didn't understand, because they were claiming that they were hypersensitive, and all his studies had led him to believe that they were hypersensitive. Anyway, he put alcohol into the mix. So he gave the whole sample, alkies and students, non-alcoholic students, he gave them 1 fluid ounce of bourbon whiskey, and the results was immediately quite striking. It wasn't what he expected. The students, the non-alcoholics, responded in exactly the same way as they had initially. So there was appropriate responses to emotional stimuluses. If they saw pictures of happiness, maybe a woman holding a baby, and nice pictures, they responded appropriately. When they were shown stuff that invoked fear or rage, they responded appropriately. The alkies, however, didn't appear to care. They showed very little or no response to all the emotional stimuluses. They were comfortably numb. It had an opiate type effect on them, and it was described, this, in the big book by Bill Wilson, as like the ease and comfort that alcoholics get from just 1 or 2 drinks. It is basically they don't deal with emotions because the alcohol turns it off. Their emotional muscle is unused and deteriorates, and when they do start having to function in normal society without the prop of alcohol, they feel hypersensitive, and the reality is they're not. But it did show that there was a physical difference because they reacted differently to normal people to alcohol. There was an actual physiological change in their behaviours, and it was shown through all that. So the heart rate would slow, that they would their eyeballs or the pupils didn't dilate when they were supposed to. The temperature sort of maintained the normal. It didn't go up when it was supposed to. So Jelinek then proved that there was a physical difference with alcoholics, and that's why the World Health Organization, after other experiments of a similar ilk, that's why they decided that alcoholism was a disease and that we are different to normal folk. And no amount of therapy is going to change us once we take 1 ounce of alcohol. We're a different person, and we're acting without emotions. So that Jekyll and Hyde stuff that is often levelled against us, we fundamentally are different people. We react normally if we don't take a drink. Our reactions are absolutely the same as normal people. Just give us 1 fluid ounce of alcohol and we don't care really about anything. And it's the feeling of ease and comfort, the not caring, that we become addicted to. And this is probably provided by massive amounts of dopamine that we have. And then there's a downside to that. So we feel terrible after it. So in our senses are sort of heightened after that. So we men quite often feel heightened levels of anger, resentment, paranoia, fear. Women too, same emotions, but they quite often carry a lot of shame, guilt, shame and remorse, and the basically heightened feelings that cause us to relapse. So the thing about the alcoholic mind and the alcoholic body, it's part of the defense is knowing what's going on, because quite often if you talk to a doctor or even a counsellor in the UK, they will blame the alcoholic for being morally bankrupt or devious or dishonest and blah blah blah. And you know what, maybe they are, but it doesn't have any bearing on their alcoholism. Whether they're honest or dishonest, it doesn't matter. Give them 1 fluid ounce of alcohol and they will perform and be like every other alcoholic. They will develop a love and a trust relationship with alcohol that takes precedent over every other relationship. alcoholics don't like a drink. They love a drink, and they love it. Is the most enduring relationship that many of them have. Even if they come from great families, they're married to lovely men and women, that doesn't matter a jot, because alcohol is always going to come first. And that's a biological thing, I'm afraid. So trying to tackle this as a normal person using normal psychology is a waste of time. There isn't really anyone who understands an alcoholic like another alcoholic. So it's a lot of the stuff we get in treatment today is nonsense. So we have treatment people trying to do CBT on an alcoholic. You wouldn't try and do CBT on someone with schizophrenia. It's just a waste of time. The thing is, organic mental disorders like schizophrenia or manic depression, that there isn't a cure for them. It's they have these different chemicals that subdue the florid episodes, but not really. There's no cure for it. So I think we're very fortunate that we have a cure, and you know, all it requires is that you don't drink, and then you can have a perfectly normal life. And maybe some people can, the realization that they have to change and that they have the capacity to change is a great motivator for success. There's a lot of people who, if they hadn't been alcoholic, they may have lived quite a mediocre life. But because they're alcoholic, they have had to take stock, take inventory of themselves, and start again with a clean sheet. Most of us bowl along through life from crisis to crisis, being affected by life. The alcoholic in recovery has the capacity to affect their own life. There's purpose, there's good reason to cultivate self-knowledge. And it's not what you might expect. It's not to cure your alcoholism or alleviate these symptoms of fear and anger and guilt and shame and remorse, to stop that. Some of that's real, some of that's imagined. A lot of it is heightened as a result of having a deteriorated emotional muscle that's never been used. So we feel bad, shockingly bad initially. But when we get some self-knowledge, and it's combined with abstinence, so we don't sabotage our lives with this self-harming behaviour, we become quite better than well. We have a capacity to earn more, to have less mental health problems than the average person, to have less physical problems, to have better physical and mental health than the average population, to earn more, be better in education, to excel in near enough every field that we're in. So it's not bad news becoming abstinent. It's actually good news. Most people don't have these crises, these turning points in their lives. Some people do, and quite often it's too late. They have a near-death experience. They have a heart attack or a stroke, and if they survive them, they might have a couple of years, and then they die. And we are blessed, if you like, to have the capacity to identify our illness early on. So my daughter, Sally, is self-diagnosed herself at 19, which is probably the age that I could have stopped at 19, if I would have had some person to tell me what I was suffering from. My family still, to this day, choose to think that I'm evil or weird or, I don't know, something. They don't believe that. They still believe that alcoholism is a matter of willpower, and I'm pretty weak-willed and weak-minded, and I'm not. I'm emotionally strong, I think. So yeah, I wrote a book called The Boy with a Thick Skin Coat, and it started off as an autobiography, I think, and the title was a tongue-in-cheek thing, because I was emotionally quite vulnerable, and some old boy said to me, "You need to get a thick skin coat, because I was paper thin. If someone gave me a dirty look, or what I perceived, I was a mind reader, obviously. If I perceived that it was a dirty look, I read everything into it, and it could destroy my day, and I could easily relapse on stuff that didn't exist. These imaginary resentments that people had against me, these people who were going to do me in. There was full of paranoia and fear and anger and rage, and it was nonsense. It was absolute madness. A lot of it was imagined. It wasn't real. But there was a solution, and there was actually a way to get a thick skin coat. And the thick skin coat, and that's where the voyage of self-discovery comes in. You can build emotional muscle, but you only build emotional muscle like you build physical muscles. You have to exercise emotions. You have to embrace conflict, if you like. You have to search out and accept hard things that you feel responsible for, and you have to. There's a famous saying is that you only get esteem or self-esteem by doing esteemed things, and that is true. I can't, although I do positive affirmations, because I believe I am wired up on a slightly negative I perceive things and I perceive me in a slightly negative way. And if there was 0 to 10, 0 being suicidal and 10 being euphoric, 5 would be content. I'm probably a 4. My natural resting state is a 4, and it's a little bit restless and a little bit discontent. And that's how I've always been before I picked up a drink. And I think that's my I have a dopamine deficit, and I just sit there, and it's not unhappy, it's not depressed, it's just a little bit restless and a little bit discontent, and I can move to content and happy and even euphoric if I do certain things, but it takes practice, and just moving that little bit from irritable and restless to content or even happy, all it takes is a gratitude list and some positive affirmations, and I have to build that into my morning rituals or my evening rituals. I can't do much in the evening, to be honest. All my stuff's done in the morning. I'm a morning person, and that's where everything gets done. And why wouldn't you? Why would you start your day off at the end of the day, before you go to bed? I don't know what happens in my sleep, but sometimes I wake up angry. I have no idea what's gone on during the night in my subconscious, but I wake up angry. I don't know what that's about at all. I think the thing I'm talking about today is the physical illness of alcoholism. And in the doctor's opinion, Dr. Silkworth said any description of the alcoholic that doesn't include the physical aspect isn't worth talking about. And he was quite a lone voice in that time, in 1934 or whatever. He was, although he was probably one of the most eminent doctors in the world working in the field of alcoholism, he pretty much put his neck on the line when he said alcoholism was a physical disorder, because no one else was saying that. But he'd worked with probably 100,000 alcoholics during his career, and he knew that there was something different about these people. And it wasn't socialization, because some of them were from really good families, and they were loved, and they were quite effective and prolific in most areas of their lives. They were successful businessmen and really competent professionals, lawyers, doctors, etc. But when it came to alcohol, they couldn't seem to manage it. So he believed that there was a physical difference with these people, and no amount of psychotherapy could help them. If you put one drink in, they had an allergic reaction. He didn't know what it was, but he had a hunch that there was some physical difference. That stuff has been proved nowadays. Sort of from the 50s and 60s, there've been quite a lot of evidence, but because the medical profession in the UK, they have no interest in alcohol, even though it costs the NHS a fortune, and there's thousands, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of deaths a year. They have 2 days training during the course of their careers. Probably that's the amount of, unless they do their own studies, but there's not many people out there who know much about this in the UK, and that's sort of why I'm doing this. I don't want to blow me own trumpet, but I am an expert. It put me in a, if you had a kid who had a problem, send them to me. Don't send them to a doctor. Doctor would have no idea what to do with them, really. So, yeah, if anyone has got a problem with alcohol, sort of DM me. And we'll see what we can do. That was me walking Wednesday, but not walking, I said. So, yeah, that's me finished. I was gonna leave you with a joke. No, what shall I? Oh yeah, self-knowledge. Right. What? Yeah, when I came round, there was I started reading everything. You know, like I say, self-knowledge won't cure your alcoholism, but it'll make your life better after the event. And you'll be able to, if you're sober, you'll be able to cope with life's trials just growing up. You know, I was mentally, emotionally not very good. And one of the old boys said, you know, you're childish, you need to grow up. And I said, you need to grow up. And you poo-poo wee-wee face. That's why I didn't say that, but that's what I wanted to say. There was other stuff as well. You know, there's I read, it's the guy George Valiant, the Natural History of Alcoholism, big, massive tome, medical book, biggest longitudinal study of alcoholism ever, which is a great book, but it cost a fortune, and it's a medical sort of book. But his study was in Boston, and the cohort was Anglo-Irish sort of descent, most of them, and they were all drinkers in Boston, Catholics. But he differentiated the groups by class. So there was the white collar and the blue collar drinkers. And they were very different, really. Over the drinking patterns and the recovery patterns were very different over a 40-year period, which they were monitored. But one of the common denominators, he said, was that they were all latently homosexual, which was sort of quite funny, I thought, because you know, I'd read stuff and it, you know, it did suggest that if you were scared of being homosexual, the chances are that you might be homosexual yourself. And it worried me, that, because I'm scared, you know, I'm scared of spiders, you know, and so I used to wake up in the morning and check under my arms to see if I've got any extra legs growing out or anything like that, you know. I didn't really, that's just a joke. But yeah, I was trying to weave a joke into this talk, but I'll continue doing these. Well, you know, as long as I stay alive. I've got to see the oncologist tomorrow. I had my scans yesterday, so in this period between scans and results, it's a horrible time, because I project the worst is going to be happening, and it's probably not as bad as I forecast, or it's probably grown the cancer slightly, but it's not, I'm not ravaged by it. So it's a little more uncomfortable than it was 3 months ago. But it's nothing that some heavy duty painkillers can't manage. And, you know, I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. So whatever, I'll let you know the results of the scans and the oncologist, because there's one or two of you who'll be interested, others not so much. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep talking, because and sometimes there might be people who are going through the same thing, and they might want to talk, and because I don't like sympathy that much. And these people, I know these people praying for me and stuff like that. And I sort of think, you know, there's a lot more deserving people than me. You know, go and pray for them. I'm not sure. It's lovely that you would pray for me, but you know, there's people who've got it a lot worse than me. So, you know, pray for them. I'm all right just for today. I'm all right. Tomorrow might be different if they give me bad news. But just for today, we're okay. I'm going to a meeting tonight, a new meeting that, well, Sally set up at the, what's it called? Delamere Rehab. And I'm looking forward to it, because it's now better. It says on chapter 7, whatever, working with others, there's nothing that guarantees complete immunity against alcoholism as work with another alcoholic, you know. And that's what I want. I want complete immunity. I don't want that sort of feeling of impending calamity that I always had. You know, I want to feel neutral. I want to feel not scared or safe and secure. And that's what I get from working with other alcoholics. And it's guaranteed complete immunity. And I'm not being big-headed. I've been around for that long, that I sort of know that I'm not going to drink under any circumstances. I don't think. It would take something, you know, maybe someone pinned me down and forced alcohol into me. I'm not even sure that would work. I know there would be a physiological shift, and it would be difficult to sort of stop, but, you know, I think I'd be all right. So I have complete immunity, and people, they argue this nonsense, recovered or recovering. I can't give a toss, to be honest. I just know that if I do today what I did yesterday, I'm going to be all right. And if I continue to do that for as long as I keep living, I'm going to be all right. So with that, I'll sign off, and the next one I'll have some good jokes for you. So keep tuning in, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.